Bill Schmick. Welcome to Thursday.
Welcome back. Today I've got a great treat for you. I found a person that you've just got to listen to. His name's Bob Mauterstock. And we're going to talk about estate planning. No, don't roll your eyes. I know estate planning sounds boring, but this is not, okay? I found out about this guy through this book. Can we talk? See, I've got a 92-year-old mother, and I know at some point soon she's going to pass, and I'm concerned about her legacy and what she's going to leave or not leave to me and the kids. I don't know. And I liked the book so much that I found a second book that Bob also wrote. And this is about me, you see, and my kids and my grandkids and what I'm going to leave to them. I found out that Bob had a bachelor in psychology from Princeton. He's got a master's in education from the University of Connecticut. He's a former Navy pilot. He's a certified financial planner and a chartered financial planner in underwriting and insurance. He speaks around the country. As I said, he's an author, and he's an authority on us, baby boomers. So what I'd like to do is present you 3 shows. The first show is going to be on a family meeting and what that will mean to you and leaving some kind of legacy to your children and to other beneficiaries. And the second show will be framed with the legal aspects of what you need to do in passing the torch. And the final show will be about healthcare issues, things that you need to know now before it's too late. So without further ado, I give you Bob Mauterstock. So Bob, why did you write these books?
Well, Bill, my first book, Can We Talk, I wrote in 2008. And it was really a result of multiple factors. One was I had spent over 30 years dealing with clients and seeing what happened in families when they didn't talk about important issues and one of the parents died and everything went to pieces. Mm-hmm. The second thing was my mom in 2005 was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So then going through the process of working with her, and after experiencing everything that I experienced with my own clients, I felt it was time to write a book about the importance of communication between boomers and their aging parents, because they need to be talking to each other while they're healthy. Mm-hmm. My second book was a result of, after writing the first book, a number of my clients came up to me and said, Bob, we've read your first book and we think we have our situation under control with our parents, but what do we say to our kids? How do we deal with our adult children? So that's when I wrote the second book, Passing the Torch, which was focused on me being the aging boomer, communicating to my kids what I thought they needed to know and what I needed to share with them.
Well, we have a lot in common. I read both books. They're great reading, easy to understand. And I think you started out with the family meeting?
Yes, I found out through my experience that only about 25% of retiring boomers communicate to their kids what their plans are for retirement. They don't share a thing. So kids are in the dark. They don't know what's going to happen with their parents. They don't know what their situation is or where they're going to be. And they need to find out. So I learned through my own experience in working with my own clients how valuable it was to get the whole family together. Because very rarely, just think about it in your own life, how often do you get together with your family and talk about really critical issues, things that are important to you? Most of the time when you get together with your family, it's around Thanksgiving dinner. You're talking about sports, you're talking about the weather, you're talking about what your job is and how you're doing, but rarely do you talk about critical issues.
Yes.
So as a result of that, I started doing family meetings with my clients. And I discovered that it changed completely the relationship of different family members to each other. After they had had this meeting together, under the right circumstances with the right guidance, it completely changed their relationship.
Well, I have a 92-year-old mother, God bless her soul. She's still alive and still thinking and so forth. Tell me a little, because I have a brother and sister. We haven't had that meeting with her.
And it'd be very valuable for you to do that, especially if she's still healthy.
She is, but she's never talked about finances with us.
And it's very rare, especially from that generation. And my own parents were in that generation. They went through the Depression, and they don't want to talk about money. Money is not something that they even share with you ever. So it's important for you to start in other areas. And what I learned was the best place to start with your aging parents and to get them into the family meeting is to ask them about their legacy. One of the things we've learned is that there's two things that are really important to older people. Number one is maintaining control of their lives, staying in control, being able to continue to drive, being able to live where they want to live and do what they want to do.
Yeah.
That's number one. But then as they start to lose their health, the number two issue becomes, how will I be remembered by my family, my children, and my grandchildren? That's a key issue to them. And they want to know that their family knows how they want to be remembered. And that involves family stories, family traditions, their religious hopes for the family, what they learn from their experience, from their successes and failures, all those things they want to share with the family. And I think one of the interesting ways to open that up is to ask her how she met your father, how they met initially. I have a great story in my own life related to that. When we were moving my mom into assisted living, I was helping her prepare to move. She had a metal box with all her key papers in it, and I was going through the metal box with her and asking her about various papers, titles and so forth. And there was in one envelope in the box, it was a brown paper envelope, and on it had been written in pencil, "Bob sent this to me on the way overseas." And I opened up this envelope, and within the envelope was a 7-page letter that my father had written to my mother in 1944 when he was on his way overseas to Omaha Beach and the D-Day landing. I opened the letter up, and it was all in rhyme, in perfect rhyme, describing the relationship of how they met each other, how the relationship went, when he purchased the ring, how they got married. But I thought the most fascinating part was the part where he talked about how they first met. They first met at the local lake, and they were skating on a Saturday afternoon. They both went home, and my dad was sitting at a table with his mom and dad, and the phone rang. His mother picked up the phone and said, "Bob, it's for you. It's that girl you met today at the lake." He said, "Oh, okay." So he answered the phone, and my mother said to him, "Are you going to the party tonight?" And he said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, do you think you could pick me up?" And this was in 1935, and my mother was born in 1920. She was a 15-year-old girl asking a boy to go to the party that night.
Right.
So this was a great story, and I've shared it with family members, and as a matter of fact, I read the letter at her memorial service. It was a perfect ending to her life. But these are the kinds of things that our parents want to share with us. Important stories in their life, important things that have happened to them. And the family meeting is the way to start that process and talk about those things to share with the family.
Sort of breaking the ice.
Right, exactly. Getting it started.
Right.
And another important part of the family meeting is to have someone not from the family be the facilitator. Because the person who is going to run that meeting is, if they're part of the family, they're going to get emotionally involved as the meeting progresses.
I see.
So I suggest that most families get another professional, perhaps their financial advisor, who they may have been working with for years, to be the person to run that meeting.
You mean if it's like my mother's, if she doesn't have a financial, maybe it's a bank person or somebody she trusts?
A person that she trusts,
I got it.
an advisor, a family friend, but someone not emotionally involved with her and with the family.
Okay.
Because that person can be independent and run the meeting without getting emotionally attached.
Okay.
And during that family meeting, you need to bring up certain things, and we'll talk about them as we go. But there are really 4 basic areas that you need to talk about. First, of course, is the legacy that we were talking about, leaving a legacy. Secondly is legal issues, and we'll talk about that later. Third is health care, and fourth is finances.
What about me? Okay, I'm talking about my mother, your mother. Now, I have a daughter, and I have 2 grandchildren. What about my family meeting? I haven't had such a thing. Should I, I'm 67 years old, should I be thinking about this?
Absolutely.
And how do I do this?
Well, the best time to do it is when you are healthy, because unfortunately most families don't have that meeting until someone is desperately ill. And then they're running in circles, and everyone is emotionally involved and very much drained by the whole process. It's valuable to have the meeting when you're healthy. But you as a parent are in good health, but unfortunately you don't know when that will change. So you need to start talking about these things now. And one of the things that I suggest that all of us do is to fill out something called the 5 wishes. It's a form that is perfect to be able to communicate to your daughter what you want. In other words, the 5 wishes is a document that tells her how you want to be taken care of if you become critically ill.
Okay.
Who you want to make decisions for you if you become sick. What kind of medical treatment do you want? How comfortable do you want to be? How do you want people to treat you? And what do you want your loved ones to know about you? So if you go through this form and answer the questions, you come up with a plan. And that plan is something that you can share with your daughter, with your attorney, with your doctor, and everyone else. And if it's signed by 2 other people, it becomes a legal document.
Where did you get this?
It's from an organization called agingwithdignity.org.
Oh, it's on the back.
Right. They've been around for about 10 years. Over 22 million people have adopted this, and it becomes a legal document if 2 people witness it. And one of the things it does also, it becomes a living will. In addition, it becomes a healthcare proxy. And we'll talk about healthcare proxies later on and how important they are. But it helps you to clarify how you want to be treated, because unfortunately, we never know what's going to happen to us. I spoke at one meeting for an insurance group in Boston, and I mentioned the final wishes, the 5 wishes in the meeting. And a young woman who came up to me after the meeting said, I wish I had known about this before my younger brother, age 30, died in a skiing accident. At least I would have known what he wanted and what he wanted done in his situation. Because most of us don't know this. There's a woman by the name of Ellen Goodman who started something called the Conversation Project. And the Conversation Project she started because she had a terrible experience with her own mother. Her mother developed Alzheimer's and got very sick, and she had never talked with her mother as to how her mother wanted to be treated when she was very ill. So she never knew. And when the doctor started asking her questions about, should we provide these antibiotics, what should we do to take care of her, she didn't have the answers. So as a result, her mother's death was very sad and very unfortunate, with all 2 tied up to her in the middle of the emergency room. And she was very sad about that. So she asked a number of her friends, what happened with your parents? Was your parents' death what we call a good death or a bad death? And she learned that the families that had a good death were those families in which the elder parent had discussed with them what they wanted done before they were sick. So it's something that we don't think about. And the first time I went to my daughter, she said, oh, Dad, I don't want to talk about that. Now you're healthy, you're in good shape. Let's not talk about that. But I insisted. And the way I got her to listen to me was to fill out the 5 wishes.
How do you get this? I mean, is this, how much is this?
I think it's $5, but if in many situations, I know in Massachusetts where I live, if you go to the Council on Aging in your town, they'll give them to you for free.
Oh, really?
You can get them for free, or you can go online and they'll send you one for $5.
Oh, okay. And going online,
Agingwithdignity.org is where you can get it. It's extremely valuable, and it's a way to open up the conversation with your own family and your parents. So, for example, if you fill this out and you give it to your mother and say, Mom, this is what I've decided to do. What do you think?
That's a good idea.
And let her respond. And then she'll start talking about herself and her own situation. And you might say, well, gee, Mom, maybe you might want to fill this out yourself.
Yeah.
And then she'll do it herself. And then you'll know. And then then she'll feel better and you'll feel better. I had my cousin, my aunt died at age 90. And my two cousins, her son and daughter, argued for 6 months about where she should be buried. Neither one of them had talked with her about where she should be buried. One said she should be buried next to her husband. The other said she should be buried with her parents. And they fought, and finally she was buried next to her parents. And they haven't spoken to each other since. It destroyed their relationship because they were so convinced that each of them was right, and as a result they don't talk to each other. But that happens all the time. Families don't prepare, and then all of a sudden they're in a difficult situation. Mom or dad is very sick, and they don't know what to do, and they don't know how to respond.
You know, when you said prepare, it sparked something. It sounds to me like before I have this family meeting for myself or my mother's, there's some preparation that has to be done beforehand.
Right, absolutely.
And then I'm caught between, you said, holidays, when, you're right. I mean, yeah, that's normally when you get your family together. But at the same time, this is not about the holiday season. This is something completely. So should you have a separate meeting? Should it not be a surprise? How do you handle this stuff?
Before you actually have the meeting, you need to prepare yourself. And the way I suggest you prepare yourself is, it's in the back of my first book is a section called the Life Folio.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
In the Life Folio is a series of pages that asks you to give information about yourself, where you keep your life insurance policies, where your investments are, where do you have your will, and you write all that down, and you keep it all in that one place, because as you know, when an emergency comes and all of a sudden we have to deal with these situations, we might be fumbling around to find out where things are and what they are.
Right.
Just 6 months ago, I purchased a new car, and I went to the dealer with my first car to turn it in, and he looked at me and said, well, where's your title? Do you have your title with you? I said, I forgot my title. And I didn't know where it was. I forgot where I had put it. So I scrambled around for 3 days to find it.
Yes.
But since then, I've entered it into my Life Folio, and I know where my titles are now. And other things like, for example, life insurance.
Right.
Where are the life insurance policies?
I don't know. I have them, but I don't know where they are.
And another factor is, are your beneficiaries up to date? And when was the last time you checked your beneficiaries?
You mean for like my...
For the life insurance policy. Every life insurance policy has one or more beneficiaries. And you need to identify in the policy who that person is.
I know who mine is. It's my father who died 10 years ago.
Well, that's unfortunate, because what will happen is if your beneficiary is not alive and you were to pass, your proceeds would go into your estate and be included as part of your estate for estate taxes. If you have an identified beneficiary, it goes to the beneficiary without taxes, without any delays. So it's important to identify who the beneficiaries are. Not only the primary beneficiary, but a contingent beneficiary. Now what that means is, if you were deceased if you died and your primary beneficiary was deceased, your contingent beneficiary would receive the funds.
I see.
So in my case, My wife is my primary beneficiary,
Right.
and my daughter is my contingent beneficiary.
So so you get all of this information, and there's places here in this book that you can fill it all
You
out.
write it all down. And,
Okay.
and something that's becoming increasingly important is what I call digital estate planning. How many of us now have a lot of our important assets and material online?
Me.
Well, I look through my own accounts and I have more than 25 different accounts online with different usernames and passwords.
Yes. Oh my! I don't even remember my usernames and passwords. I have them written down all over scribbles of paper. And
Well, the key is you need to have them in one place. And again, in the book, I have a page where you write down usernames and passwords and maintain all that for your family so that they know where that stuff is. Because unfortunately, if they don't know and they try to get into your accounts, they're going to call up a company and say, well, gee, my husband's passed away and I don't know his username and password, but can you let me into his account?
or they're not going to do
They're
that.
not even going to talk to you. They're going to say, sorry, I can't, you need to get that information before we can deal with you.
Yeah.
So as a result, your family is hung up without access to that information. So if you have it all listed in here with username, password, and beneficiary. Let's say, for example, you've built up a Kindle account with 100 books.
Yeah.
I've got like 50 books now. I mean, that's worth something. And who's going to be the beneficiary of that? You've got to specify in your digital estate plan who the beneficiary is, because it does not go according to your will. Nowhere in our wills is there any reference to digital assets.
Ah.
It's not part of our wills.
Wow.
It's just not in there because there's no federal law as to what happens to digital assets when you pass.
Really.
So you need to identify yourself who gets those assets, and then the family will say, oh, okay, the books go to my daughter, the movies go to my wife, and so on and so forth.
Right.
But until you do that, no one knows.
Wow. Wow.
So a big part of this are the digital assets, but I might get back to the life insurance for a second.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned last week when I watched a 60-minute segment is there's a number of life insurance companies that even though they know a person has died and they know who the beneficiary is, they don't pay out the claim until the beneficiary requests the money.
Really.
There are billions of dollars at insurance companies waiting to be claimed by beneficiaries who don't know they're the beneficiary.
So in my case, if I die and my beneficiary is my deceased father, they'll keep it.
What might happen, what some companies have done, is they'll keep the policy in force and they'll keep subtracting cash from the policy to pay the premiums.
Oh, man.
Even after you're dead. That happens. That
Oh.
happens. And there's billions of dollars left in those policies that people don't know they're a beneficiary of. So it's very important that you get the right beneficiaries, you name them, and you make sure they know they are the beneficiary and what they would have to do if you passed away, what they would have to do. Now, you can always change your beneficiaries. You're not ever locked in to a specific person or persons for your beneficiaries. You
Right.
can always change those.
Well, let's stop here because I want to get to the nitty-gritty of that meeting, which I'm thinking about, okay, like with my mother. I've got a sister and a brother, in different places. One's in Pennsylvania,
Right.
one's in Delaware. Who should do this? Who should be my
Well-
92-year-old mother? Somebody's got to do this. Somebody's got to take
Yeah.
charge.
Right.
Me?
Right. Well, the way I describe it is whomever in your group of siblings is the alpha child. And
Alpha child.
by alpha child, I mean who's the family champion? Who's the child that has always had a good relationship with the parents, that has a good relationship with their siblings, is respected and admired by the other family members, and is the person who always brings the family together? Might that be you, perhaps?
Yeah, that's me.
Well, in every family, if you stop and think, you'll discover that one of you is that person, that alpha child, that family champion.
Okay.
And the alpha child generally has a good relationship with the other siblings, despite what might have happened. And as the alpha child, you can say to them, it's really important that we get together with mom and talk about these critical issues.
So we do that. I do that first.
Do that
with
first.
The sister and brother.
Right.
Okay.
It's really important that we get together.
Okay.
And then once they agree with you to do that,
Yeah.
the next step is when the facilitator steps in.
Okay.
The facilitator's job is then to give you a call, give your siblings a call, give your mother a call, and ask some questions. What are your concerns? What do you want to get out of the meeting? What don't you want to happen? How do you want this meeting to go? And speak to each one of them for about 45 minutes to get to know them a little better, to get a relationship with them, and to find out what it is that they want. And
Okay.
then the facilitator will put together an agenda.
All right.
And share that with everyone. Send it out to them. Say, here's my proposed agenda. What do you think? Once that's done, then if there's any changes, they'll make the changes and then have the meeting. And the facilitator will start the meeting. And one of the things I always suggest that we start out any of these meetings, that beforehand you advise each one of the family members to say something positive about another family member as you open the meeting.
Okay.
Because you want this meeting to be cordial. You don't want people yelling at each other. You don't want people fighting with each other, because the family meeting is not going to change what happened in the family 25 years ago.
Right.
That's not going to happen. All you're concerned about is, what do we do going forward to make sure mom is taken care of? How do we work together to take care of mom?
And it sounds like this should be not a holiday attached to a holiday or something. No,
generally not, because
No.
there's too many other things going on, too many other family members, children,
Kids,
grandchildren,
grandkids.
kids, spouses.
True.
I suggest that the meeting be just with parents and their adult children, and not with their spouses or grandchildren. Because unless one of the spouses is so involved with one of the siblings that the sibling can't make any decisions without them.
Yeah.
And hopefully in most cases that's not true. But you have a chance to sit together and for the first time talk about things that are important to all of you that you probably never talked about before.
Is this a long? How long should this meeting
Well,
be?
Generally speaking, the first meeting should be a couple of hours. But if you find that there's a lot of things that need to be continued,
Yeah.
sometimes it can go on for a second day. And I've seen meetings go on a Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday.
So you should really schedule the weekend.
Yeah, I suggest that the weekend, you prepare for the weekend to have this meeting. And you might, once the meeting is over and you create an agenda, okay, these are the things that need to get done.
Yeah.
You might want to reconvene 6 months or a year later to see what's happened,
Okay.
to see if things have changed, to see if mom's taken care of.
Okay.
And if everyone's participated and gotten involved in the meeting. Because it's great to have the meeting, but it's what comes out of the meeting that's very important.
Well, this has really been great. Okay. And I'm glad that we're going to be together for another and two more of these talks, because there's a lot to cover and we've just barely scratched the surface.
There's so much.
So I guess in our next broadcast, what we'll talk about is what?
We'll talk about the legal issues.
The legal issues?
that you need to deal with in helping your aging parents and yourself during your own life.
Well, you know, I wish Prince had been alive long enough to watch this show, because from what I hear in the newspapers, there's a big mess. He never left a will. He's got a $325 million estate, plus the music issues. Well, unfortunately, he's not here, but you are.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, so tune in for our next broadcast. Thank you.